Hello, and welcome to an adventure like no other. Far more than what you have known, there is something far more to be known than you can ever know. And it is all about you, the real you, your real awareness with your intuitive senses. You were never taught that the real you, your real awareness, is operating 5 bodies in cause and effect, restricting creation. You have been taught to think that you are only a one-dimensional human person, with a mind and emotions, and with a very short lifespan on this planet Earth. More than what your mind can grasp is your intuitive senses that can be opened to see beyond all your restrictions. You have always had an opening to see beyond what you have known, and this has been purposely kept from you, and this is where you have heard rumors and stories about your nightly dreams. Your so-called dreams is your opening to your intuitive senses that will allow you, the personal you, to excel beyond what you have previously known. Everyone has intuitive senses, and very few people take advantage of what is possible by recognizing something more than their mind can understand. Creation has its place for all of us, and then there is all life, which is far more than anything than what can become with creation. Everything we experience is necessary for us to survive with whatever we choose and decide our life to be. New Kevin Smith is the great witness to something more than what can be taught and learned in any school. It can be so that when anyone first listens to Kevin's intuitive side experiences, also known as real side experiences, from what their personal mind has known, Kevin's manner of expression will at first be rather different to comprehend. This is where this introduction and reading the new books and Facebook groups will help. Have fun deciding. DUANE the Great Writer and Seer.
In this real side experience, I would be operating in an aside from the simulated situation, real awareness view position. For the real awareness that we each actually are, is a part of the isness, everything reality, a true reality that animates through every consciousness affected form and feature, every idea of creation as it manifests effects into a simulation, and as such, everything transpiring in creation is available to the real awareness and can be revealed to the personal self if it makes sense to do so, if it is beneficial to life and awareness, that such is shown. Only where we seek to exact alteration to what is occurring creationally, will the real awareness insert a form into the simulated situation that presents as something by which other participants featuring can relate to. In reality, as everything transpiring creationally is based on agreement, we can't in actuality violate the free will of others to decide and create as they see fit. All we can realistically do is attempt to redirect agreement that what is effected as an alternative is more beneficial, awareness speaking, and where agreements permit, so we can operate in the capacities of a rescuer, assistance provider, we can intervene into the simulated affairs, and I have shared countless real side experiences that serve as examples of this. For indeed, our primary objective is to present the new you sound and opportunity of the ears to all in creation, and as the personal self needs to be approached and brought into the picture, so is it necessary to operate in the domain that is the personal self-consciousness, which would be a creation. We need operate through a form by which engaging with the created personal selves of others multi-dimensionally is possible, as opposed to remaining as the true reality, isness, real awareness, that is aside from the isolated, real awareness disconnected personal self. and although we can engage with the real awareness that they are from this everything is position, as I said, the personal isolated self needs be interacted with, and the means afforded it by which recognition of how to connect with the real awareness that actually animates the creations can be so. That even though the personal self is just a creation, it is a necessary tool for recognizing the is from the comparison that it and the creations it effects provides. Though a creation that has somewhat taken on a life of its own, and until it decides to get on board with the awareness process, the real awareness is somewhat resigned to maintaining its created forms in the simulators. As though the computer game character we had created has taken on a free will self-deciding life of its own, and the real awareness, the computer game operator, must rather sit back and wait until the creation re-establishes a contact with the operator, that they become as one intent with the is, and the real purpose of is recognition can be accomplished. But on occasion we need only observe what's taking place in creation, and insertion into whatever simulated affairs are taking place isn't required. In this case, I would be witnessing the progress of a species that had in its entirety decided to step up and become more aware. Evidently, the species as a whole had been afforded this opportunity by the real guides, the real awareness animating through each of the individuals of the species, ready for the process of is recognition, and by whatever means and mechanism had the entirety of the species' personal selves been afforded the requisite real references, the new sound, true reality connection, and they all had embarked enthusiastically on their respective processes of awareness. The species in question would take the form of raptors, the dinosaurs made popular through the Jurassic Park movie franchise, and indeed this species would look practically identical to the raptors that featured in the Steven Spielberg movies. These were not then body forms, such as the dinosaurs that once roamed the earth, directly animated by real awareness, the computer operator, prior to the secondary personal free will wielding self being formulated, and where the computer operator then must sit back as its creation takes on a life of its own, but forms where the secondary self was established. This, of course, would be rather obviously the case, for the process of awareness can only begin after the secondary self has been created, and where the secondary self has floundered through the simulator, creating the lifetimes that it has, collating all the necessary experiential references, until such time as the real awareness is ready to recognize the is and brings the personal self on board. For without the secondary, unreal fabrication the personal self presents as, there would be no comparison between the two positions, that of the ideas, pieces and parts, in relation to the everything is reality. As a consciousness design always effects body forms in equal reflected measure, should the body forms be of a more monstrous or distorted appearance, this rather indicates the nature of the individual, their life choices, inclinations, as not being especially life-supporting. The reptilian body types being a prime example of a form effected from a consciousness of abrasively inclined construction, and as individuals continue to be destructive of others, their forms can continue to progressively distort and regress from the standard two-legged bipedal forms to those more akin to animals. For indeed have I seen ill-intended reptilians presenting as snakes and crocodiles on the real side, forms they will be projecting into as they continue to pursue their chosen inclination to be destructive. These raptors then were forms more so on the animalistic side, forms they had projected themselves into through their persistent choice to be destructive and oppressive of others, and here they would all be on a planet somewhere multi-dimensionally, but a testament to how, regardless of the choices we make, and how abrasively inclined we have been for the longest time, at any moment we can make better choices, turn it all around, and elect to recognize the years. As after all, everything we have been through in the simulators is simply fabricated unreality, and although we are always the effects of ourselves, all of it realistically serves but the singular purpose, that of a comparative mechanism to recognize the true reality by. For indeed others have made mention of the raptor species, and I have seen this expression of the reptilian form on various of my real side experiences, and indeed I would recognize that I had some affiliation with them, very likely through a past lifetime where I had been as one of these raptors also. And as every association we have is forged from an idea agreement that makes it so, every lifetime, species, and the affiliations with the individuals of the species we were once a part of is an idea agreement we have in relation to them, agreements we will eventually sever as we go about our consciousness facing and releasing awareness process, but ideas still present in consciousness, regardless of our detaching agreement from them, that serve as open doors where we can enter the experiences of all beings and body types we once had association and shared lifetimes with. That through these ideas, in affiliation with other body forms and species, the guides can utilize these connections we have, that we can approach and engage with the various assorted expressions of body type throughout multi-dimensional creation. I was simply observing at this stage, as I said, but very likely this raptor species, the entirety of it stepping up, as I said, I would be featuring in subsequent experiences of, and possibly making my presence known, effecting a form into their simulated midst that they can interact with. The species, although raptors, had constructed and operated within rudimentary villages, and not only would I be privy to the fact of they stepping up as a species, but over what seemed like a series of months, though in actuality was part of one night of real side experiences, so I would bear witness to all the real side experiences each individual of the species were being provided by the guides, and listening in as they would then share their experiences with each other on the physical, providing a mutual support network that facilitated better the species awareness process. They were then going through the same process model as, say, humans would, being afforded all required that eventual recognition of the separation of the personal self-creation and the real awareness is this reality could be so, and additionally a facing of the entirety of their created consciousness and the subsequent systematic release of every idea, agreement, and attachment that was its construct. The raptors more so communicated telepathically, operating as a hive mind collective consciousness, and as the entire species were choosing to become more aware, as every individual's experiential references are then known to all of the collective, physical level and real side. So this is where a collective consciousness can be a greater mechanism of awareness becoming, the process exponentially accelerated. During the experience, as I would bear witness to the raptors process, the real side experiences, they were each having additionally, as I said, as I was operating from my real awareness position with the oversight of everything creational that it has, everything that was being revealed would make a sense. From the personal self perspective, however, so what was revealed could only be ascertained in relation to the comparable references I had available from my current lifetime of physical and real side experiences, that of being human. As you can imagine, the consciousness that had effected as the raptor form, the personal self of the raptor, would be vastly different to a human's, as every consciousness of every respective species will be programmed differently, and some may be so at odds to a human's as to be completely unrelatable. Even a species' established routines of created reactions and emotions, of idea consideration formulating in response to the experiences they generate for themselves, will differ in comparison to other species, as will the species' psychology and social consciousness, and this would make for quite the confusing consciousness to be facing and releasing from the perspective of a human. And indeed, as the real guides will cater the process to suit the uniqueness of each individual's developed consciousness, so a raptor's process of awareness, that which the guides reveal to them, and the way they go about it, the symbology they use, etc., would be quite the contrast to the awareness process the guides take a human through. And so, from my personal self-perspective, the real experiences of the raptors I was privy to witness made only marginal sense, but recognized by the real awareness simultaneously, an interesting phenomena of both understanding what's taking place and baffled by it at the same time, and on waking attempting to apply literal interpretation, a literal human interpretation of a completely alien species. And during the experience was I as though witnessing every individual raptor's real side experiences simultaneously also, as from the real awareness position, everything transpiring in creation, physical level and real side, is within the isness, real awareness nowness reality, and again, from the personal self perspective and view, it could handle but glimpses, parts and pieces of all that was taking place. But the overall idea of the experience was apparent, a raptor species stepping up in their entirety, a species I once had been a part of, and once again revealing how at this moment vast multitudes of beings and body types throughout multi-dimensional creation are deciding to become more aware and embark on the journey and real purpose of his recognition. In an unrelated scene that followed, I would find myself in an audience where we would be witness to a demonstration, just as you would find on Earth where a product is promoted on stage or in a show in an effort to captivate the audience and have them sign up or purchase whatever is being peddled. Only here the demonstration was of a very advanced sci-fi nature. The individual presenting his product was a kind of shape-shifter, although his base form was never determined, as he would alter his form in accordance with what he was conveying, as though providing additional emphasis with the dazzling array of sophisticated graphics that were manifesting as holograms in the hall we were in. As it transpired, he was affording a means by which an individual could attain whatever they desired. In reality, we always are the effects of ourselves. Creation is a mirror for our wants, needs, and desires, but oftentimes we may not effect exactly what we want, as despite our conscious formulation of the idea of our needs, always there is the vaster part of the consciousness, the subconscious, comprising of all the agreements we are unconscious of, and that may present as contradicting agreement to that which we desire, as though we were playing a tug of war with ourselves, that which we want being conflicted by subconscious agreements to the contrary. A human slave may wish to be free from the controllers, but within the subconscious will be lifetimes of agreements as extended to the controllers and their power, which will be maintained until we face and release every agreement the consciousness, including the bulk of it, the subconscious comprises of. The slave then resigned to dark force subjugation despite consciously desiring liberation. The individual conducting this demonstration was aware of the creational mechanics, how consciousness dictates effected experience, but he had determined a mechanism that through technological means could the agreements we are unconscious of, that are conflicting with our ability to effect manifest what we desire, be severed. In essence, not such an outlandish boast, as after all, creation is based on computer-like principles, really just a case of deleting ideas, just like we might with the files on a computer, that no longer can that which is effected from them be made manifest as our experiences or on the computer screen. Everything based on agreement as it is, as to the extent, if any, others can impact our experiences and body forms, but here was an open offer to afford this service, and for those accepting, this would be then open conscious agreement, and as impressions revealed, this individual had the ability he boasted to erase ideas from consciousness that effected are more favourable and desired circumstances. Every situation is an opportunity, and we rather adopt the mentality of being open to everything, as after all we are to face the entirety of the consciousness and creation, rather than categorize ideas into those which we like or dislike, and avoid the simulated situations then that are displeasing to the personal self. We endeavour to move into a position where, although we don't cling and attach to the ideas, we are not negating them either, for as we negate ideas, these in and of themselves are restrictions we are establishing. We simply view all creation as the unreality fabrication it is, without being emotionally invested or inclined to categorize the ideas it consists of into likes and dislikes. We are fine with everything and utilize the ideas as required, but always recognize them as references that realistically only serve as a means of his recognition. I was evidently here for a reason, and so would be agreeable to volunteer for the technological process that, as impressions suggested, would remove restricting and limiting ideas of my consciousness, a process I was undertaking anyway, the process of awareness, but regardless, I was curious as to where this may lead, and further impressions suggesting the shape-shifting individual, although personal self immersed, was not in any way dark force affiliated. The scene would fade. I would find myself now strapped within a kind of a vertical booth, and the procedure seemed to comprise of the individual whose created method this was, slicing through the skin around my toenails with a scalpel of a kind, though no sensation of a pain did I receive. Very likely an anaesthetic had been applied. I would bleed where he had cut, and although this was seemingly a necessary part of the procedure, I would be afforded no impressions or indeed information from the individual as to what purpose these incisions served. And now he would insert several tubes into my upper left arm, the tubes attached to an array of technological apparatus that would be the means by which limiting idea restrictions my consciousness still harboured would be erased. That, as I said, impressions verified would indeed be the case. A theme of recent real-side experiences have involved the agreeing to other beings with the capability to make alterations to my consciousness as a means of additional survival, not only on the real side, where for whatever reason we may be disconnected from the real awareness, and so the unlimited capability it can provide is denied, and all we have are what personal self-consciousness skills we have developed, which would include those now afforded through the consciousness alteration, but ultimately abilities that also will become so on the physical, as everything eventually filters from the real side to the physical level, that such may improve our ability to withstand environments that could potentially deteriorate if the dark force controllers have their way. This situation seemed to be along these lines, where through the consciousness adjustments the individual would make, so would I be less limited from a consciousness personal self perspective, and this would impact through to the physical eventually, as everything occurring on the real side will, as I said. Although during the procedure we would be the recipient of attack from a monstrously mutated creature, and impressions revealed that this creature had undergone this same procedure, a procedure that through the releasing of a limitation of the consciousness so afforded would be the ability to alter experience and indeed body form at will, but seems this would demand a certain discipline in regards to thought creation. For if we can move into positions where we can manipulate our simulated situations and forms, real side and physical level at will, we rather need exercise control where our idea creating is concerned. That if we churn out endless, unregulated ideas, our reality and form will be in reflective, chaotic accordance. An ability, then, that requires responsible harnessing, that the vast majority of humans, incapable of exacting precise control over their idea generating, spewing out thought and emotion with unchecked abandon as most will, would unlikely be suitable candidates for such, as exemplified here, a monster manifested through unregulated idea creating, driven insane through generated reality and body forms he couldn't stabilize, through being as uncontrollable, idea creating wise as he was. Very likely then, only those able to be more centered in the nowness of their real awareness true positions would be viable candidates for such a consciousness adjusting that would have them able to manipulate their direct experience and body form as they saw fit. The same could be said for the awareness process, that the guides will only take us through it as we can handle the greater positions in life made available responsibly. But regardless, one of the shape-shifting individual's assistants would subdue the attacking creature with a sedative. The scene would fade and the experience end there, and it remains to be seen what comes of this, as evidently I was put through it for a reason, that it may well yield greater survival capability on the physical, or may be the first stage of another avenue of real side experience. As I said, every situation is an opportunity, and if nothing else, it affords another comparison to recognize the years by. And for every agreement we take on, if the effects prove to not be beneficial, we have but to sever the agreements, that we are extricated from the effects.